Good morning, everyone. My name's Helen Miller from Ohio EPA. We will be starting our presentation in approximately 1 minute as we still have some folks logging on. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Fight the Bite, Ohio EPA's Mosquito Control Grant Application Overview. This is part of our In Your Community webinar series, which focuses on environmental issues at the local level, covering a wide range of topics, from how Ohio EPA regulates pollution sources to ways on improving the environment in your local area. My name's Helen Miller with the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance here at Ohio EPA, and I'll be moderating this morning's presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items to help you participate and engage with our presenter. On this slide, you see an example screenshot of your attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your computer desktop on the right-hand side of your screen. For this presentation, you are listening in using your computer audio. If you're having sound issues or if the slides stop advancing, please try refreshing your browser. If that doesn't work, try logging off and logging back in. If you continue to have issues, please let us know in the Q&A pane, and one of our behind-the-scenes team members will try to assist you. Please feel free to submit questions to the presenters by clicking on the question mark icon and typing them into the question pane on your attendee interface. You may send your questions in at any time during the presentation. We'll try our best to answer questions as they come in and during the Q&A portion. If we don't answer your question during the Q&A portion, we will reach out to you via email following today's webinar. You can also click on the document icon to view included handouts. Handouts today include a PDF file of the PowerPoint slides used for today's presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording in a follow-up email, along with a link to the survey. The survey will appear once this webinar ends. We value your feedback and would greatly appreciate it if you let us know how we're doing and let us know if there's anything we can do to further assist you. The certificate of attendance will also be emailed to you after the session. Our presenter this morning is Jeff Montavon in our Division of Materials and Waste Management. Now I'll turn the mic over to Jeff.
Thank you, Helen. We appreciate everyone joining today's webinar as we provide an overview of the 2024 Mosquito Control Grant. This is a good opportunity to ask questions, kind of review some of the materials we're going to be looking at for the application this year. So if you apply for funds in the past, much of today's content will be familiar. However, we have made a couple of changes to the application, which will hopefully make it easier for you to apply. We'll go over those in a bit, but first we're going to take a look at the agenda for today's webinar. So here in just a minute, we're going to take a short poll or a quick poll before we provide an overview of the background of the Mosquito Control Grant Program. Following that, we'll look at the 2024 application and review instructions for applying for the grant. We'll also provide some resources you can use while applying for the grant and completing your application. Then we'll take questions and comments before we adjourn. So first, we're going to take a poll. We'll pull up the question here in just a second. So we want to know, which type of organization do you work for? Go ahead and we'll have you select that in just a minute. We have local health departments, other government agencies, nonprofit organizations, private sector businesses, or if you work for another type of organization, you would select other.
Okay, I have launched the poll, so when it pops up on your screen, please make your selection. And it looks like most people have voted. If you haven't, go ahead and please make your selection, and we'll go ahead and close the poll here in a second. Okay, I'm going to share the results, Jeff. There you go.
All right, thank you, Helen. So it looks like the majority of you, so just not everybody actually, is from a local health department or another government agency. It's like 1% we have from other organizations, 5% from private sector businesses. So looks like most of you, it's great to see those of you associated with the health department and other government agencies, because those are the audience this is designed for. So we'll talk a little bit more about eligibility in the presentation, but we'll move forward with the presentation, get a little background on the mosquito control grant. Okay, so just to give a little bit of background about the mosquito control program, it resulted from the Scrap Tire Summit in 2016. So illegally dumped scrap tires often become mosquito breeding sources, and funds were needed to help control mosquito populations. So as a result, the Mosquito Control Grant was created to help communities conduct mosquito surveillance, control mosquitoes, educate their residents, and remove breeding sources. Ohio EPA is happy to collaborate with Ohio Department of Health to make grants available to communities. So we rely on the Ohio Department of Health data to make recommendations to target communities where disease-carrying mosquitoes have been identified to reduce the risk of transmitting to people. So the grant makes funds available to agencies that will implement mosquito control measures, whether your goal is to educate people about mosquito management around their homes, identify mosquito hotspots, control adult mosquitoes and larvae, or remove breeding sources. The Mosquito Control Grant aims to make funds available for your program needs. So the activities funded through Mosquito Control Grant are designed to help reduce the potential for mosquito-borne viruses and reduce threats from scrap tire and illegal dumping. So ultimately, the goal of the program is for grant recipients to include strategic planning into their mosquito control programs. Through planning and vector management, grant recipients are able to optimize the use of resources and make control decisions based on surveillance data. And through data-based decisions, communities can determine the best methods to reduce mosquito populations and implement better control methods. So some history about our grant. We've made some changes over the years. Initially, the first year of the program, we were able to fund nearly every application that came through. Since then, the grant program has become more competitive. So we have roughly $1 million available to fund mosquito control grants this year. This is roughly half the funds that are available during the first year of the program. So the quality of applications has continued to grow and improve, which has made the grant more competitive since the inception of the program. So in order to make funds available to more organizations, Ohio EPA has also placed funding caps on how much an applicant requests. Based on the average request for funds the agencies receive, the funding cap has been set at $25,000. There are also caps within funding categories, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the presentation too. The program timeline has also been adjusted over the years to better align with the mosquito season. So we anticipate having funding decisions in late March to early April, so grant recipients can get their project started at the beginning of mosquito season. And our application has moved to an online platform. We've had that for several years now. Some of you who may have been involved in the first couple of application rounds, so we did accept paper and email applications. So we no longer do that. Everything is done through our application or online application platform. So we will only accept those applications that are submitted online. And looking specifically at some changes we have for 2024. So based on applicants' feedback, we've made a few changes. So we've streamlined the application to make it simpler for completion. So some of the information requests in the application was repetitive, so we've eliminated some of those instances, so we don't have that repetitive information any longer. We also removed some questions we felt were unnecessary and hope making the application easier to complete for applicants. And we'll talk in more detail about those changes, but we expect these changes will be positive for applicants and hopefully will make it easier for you to complete that as you go through the online application. And just a little bit of funding history looking over the years. So it's a historical look at funding of the program. As mentioned earlier, the program funded every application in 2016. There's about $2 million available, a little bit over that. And since then, the funding amount have fluctuated over the years. I think we had reached 813,000 in 2022. Last year, we had 815,000. Looking specifically at that, we were able to award that to a total of 46 organizations. Most of those grants were awarded to local health departments, and we also had a couple of villages that received funds. So on the right side of the screen, there's a map where we've awarded projects since 2016. So several counties have been awarded grants 7 or 8 years. So had a successful rate of submitting and receiving applications, but we still have about 15 counties where we haven't received any applications and haven't funded projects. So we like to see funds spread throughout the state. So if you're a health department or community in one of those counties, we strongly encourage you to apply. And just a quick graph of our funding history and where those funds have gone to historically. So about 77% of grant recipients since 2016 have been county health departments. 13% have been city health departments, and 10% have been other entities, which would be any sort of local government, townships, cities, villages, and so forth. So we do get results from our previous grant recipients when they submit their final report, and this is just a look at the annual results we have from the mosquito control grant each year. So about 200,000 mosquitoes are collected and tested for disease as a result of the program. Through the communication and outreach portion of the grant, our grant recipients have directly reached 100,000 people. So they've done a really great job of working in communities, educating them about how to control mosquitoes around the home, what they can do to avoid mosquito bites, and protect themselves and their families. Thousands more people have been reached through television, radio, newspaper, and billboards. So we don't have any data to show exactly how many people have, but we know a lot of those ads are reaching people around the state. And each year we are able to collect more than 10,000 scrap tires through the mosquito control grant program. So breeding source reduction is a very important part of this program. So it's always good to see those tires being taken, collected, and then disposed of properly. Okay, so we're going to move on as we're going to talk about the application here in just a moment. But before we move into that, we're going to take another quick poll. So I'll pull up the question and read that in this selection here in just a second. So have you previously applied for a mosquito control grant? This is a yes or no question. So if you have, just click yes. If not, click no.
Okay, I have launched the poll, so go ahead and make your selection. Yeah, it looks like most people have made their selection. If you haven't, go ahead in and please do that, and I will close the poll shortly. Okay, I am sharing the results, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Helen. Yeah, looking at that, looks like more than half of you on the webinar today have applied. Looks like we have a bunch of new people tuning in today. So excited to see those. We encourage you to apply, learn more about the grant program here today. But yeah, 56% have received grants in the past and 44 have not. Okay, so we're just going to go over this year's application and some information about the 2024 grant. So we did open or launch the mosquito control grant on November 13th. So it's been open for just 3 days now. So the application, as I mentioned, is online only. So no paper email applications will be accepted. So we tend to receive more applications each year, so the grant program continues to become more competitive. So this year we're going to have about $1 million available for mosquito control grants. Financial need, collaborations are very important considerations in the review process. So when you're completing your application, we want to see how much your organization provides for mosquito control grants. So if you've received funds in the past, we don't want to know about that. Just what does your organization give? So if you get no funds at all, be sure you tell us we don't receive funds from your organization. If your organization gives you $1 million, you would want to state that too. So that way we can get an idea of where the financial need is most prevalent, and we can kind of rank applications based on that need. So to be awarded, you have to have all previous grants closed through 2022. So if you have a 2023 grant that's open, that can remain open through the end of April of 2023. So all other ones must be closed. So we recently wrapped up reviewing final reports from 2022. So there are a few grant recipients who have funds returned to Ohio EPA. So we'll be sending those invoices from 2022 within the next couple of weeks. So no concern if you've not returned those funds at this point. Go ahead and apply for that, but we'll be getting that out to you shortly if you do owe funds to Ohio EPA. And the application closes on January 6, 2024 at 3:00 p.m. So we can't accept late applications, so make sure your application is submitted by 3:00 on Friday, January 26th. Now, in terms of who can apply, we're going to take a look at some of the eligibility requirements in the next few slides and review some of the details you'll see on the application. So since the program was established, most applications for mosquito control grant are submitted by local health departments. So of course, local health departments are absolutely encouraged and eligible to apply for this. But any government agency that conducts mosquito measures is eligible to apply for funds. So that might include solid waste management districts, mosquito control boards, county, township, municipal governments. However, if you are an applicant and you're not a local health department, you will need the support of your local health department to apply for funds. So you can do that through a letter of support from your local health department. It's just kind of a little bit of information. If you need a template, some information, if you're a government agency and you need that, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be glad to provide some examples for you. But just to reiterate, any local government can apply for funds, but if you're not a local health department, you will need to receive the support of your local health department before you apply. And next, we're looking at the project category eligibility. So there are limitations to the funding amount you can request. So no application can request more than $25,000. And then there are also limits of the amount of funds you can request in each project category. So if you're requesting funds for mosquito surveillance or larval control, you're limited to $5,000 each in either of those categories. For our other categories, it'd be all adult mosquito control, community outreach and education, breeding source reduction, seasonal employees and contracted services. You can request up to $10,000 in each of those categories, but your total request should not be more than $25,000. In the online application, we do have some catches. So if you exceed any of those amounts in your budget request, you won't be able to proceed. So those are noted in the online application and you'll be prevented from asking for more than that. So just some reference for you to look at now, but you should not exceed any of those dollar amounts when making your funding request. And there are also certain requirements to be eligible to apply for some projects categories. So applications requesting funds for mosquito surveillance and larval control must include a mosquito surveillance plan and also participate in the Ohio Department of Health statewide surveillance program. So in addition to submitting a mosquito surveillance plan and participating in ODH's surveillance, applicants applying for adult mosquito control are also required to participate in an integrated vector management program. So applicants should also meet these requirements if their seasonal staff or contractors will be performing surveillance, larval control, or adult control. So we've got that listed there for mosquito surveillance, larval control. You're required to have a plan and also participate in statewide surveillance. And then adult control, you're required both of those requirements as well as participating in integrated vector management. And just as I mentioned, if your staff will be doing any of those, or your contractors will be doing any of those, and you request funds for that, you're also required to complete those with your application. So a mosquito surveillance plan is required for applicants requesting funds for surveillance adult and mosquito, and larval control, because it provides a number of benefits. It helps determine the distribution of mosquito species and how abundant they are in the area. Helps identify breeding grounds, also helps identify the risk of mosquito-borne illnesses in the area. The mosquito surveillance plan will help in decision making, so you're able to best optimize resources to most effectively control mosquitoes. And the plan also helps measure the success of your program, and you're able to map mosquito populations and treatment areas. The Ohio Department of Health statewide surveillance program also provides many benefits. It ensures participants are recording consistent quality data. Data is also centralized and provides baseline statistics to allow for comparison of behavior before and after implementation of mosquito control activities. ODH's statewide surveillance is available at no cost to participants, and data is distributed to local health departments. And for those requesting funds for adult mosquito control, participating in integrated vector management is required. Vector management utilizes vector management utilizes vector-based decision making, so resources are allocated in the most effective method while using the most appropriate interventions to control mosquitoes. So vector management puts emphasis on stakeholder involvement, and also interventions are more efficient, cost-effective, while being more sustainable and protective of the environment. So the next slide, we're going to talk about some eligible and ineligible expenses. So we don't have an all-encompassing list of things that can be purchased or should not be. So we're going to take a look at some of the more common questions we receive regarding what things are eligible and not eligible through the Mosquito Control Grant Program. So our unallowable activities and purchases. So first of all, we don't allow for the funding of vehicles through the Mosquito Control Grant. We do allow for mileage reimbursement and also for gas reimbursement if you have your own vehicles, but you cannot purchase vehicles with Mosquito Control Grant funds. We also don't allow funds to go for permanent employees' salary or benefits. You are allowed to request funds for seasonal employees. So if you wanted to have interns or hire someone seasonally to be involved in the Mosquito Control Grant Program, you could request funds for those seasonal employees, but may not request funds for permanent employees. So grant funds cannot be used for traps or dippers. The Ohio Department of Health will provide those traps for free of charge. And if requesting funds for breeding source reduction, applicants can't use funds from Ohio EPA scrap tire or community and litter grants to clean up the same site. So we're going to talk a little bit more about breeding sources and those other two programs I just mentioned in terms of where you cannot use funds. So as I mentioned, through the Mosquito Control Grant, applicants may request funds for breeding source removal, such as scrap tire cleanups, but funds cannot be used to clean up the same site where scrap tire or community litter grants are used. Sorry, I had one more. So just a little bit about our Ohio EPA's no-fault scrap tire grant. So if there is a scrap tire dump with 100 to 10,000 tires within your jurisdiction, this may be another option for tire removal. There are some qualifiers to be eligible for Ohio EPA scrap tire no-fault cleanup program. Private landowners, as well as local and state federal government agencies, are eligible to apply for the no-fault scrap tire grant. Just some of those qualifiers include a site can't have fewer than 100 tires or more than 10,000 tires. To be eligible, tires may either have been placed after the owner acquired the property, or the tires were placed before a landowner inherited the property. So if you were to purchase property with those tires on it, you would not be eligible. The property owner must not have knowledge or took actions to prevent the tires from being placed on the property. The property owner also didn't participate or consent to placing tires on the property, and the owner didn't receive any financial benefit from the tires being placed on the property. The property title was not transferred to avoid liability for the tires, and the responsible party who placed the tires on the property was not acting as an agent for the property owner. So applications for the no-fault scrap tire grant are accepted throughout the year. So if you're aware of a site in your jurisdiction that may be eligible for the no-fault scrap tire program, you may consider that program to remove tires. Another grant option, Ohio EPA's community and litter grants also may be used for cleanup at a site where or may not be used where mosquito control grant funds are being used. So to qualify for Ohio EPA's community and litter grant, you may be a government agency. This includes Keep America Beautiful affiliates, boards of education, and nonprofit organizations. Applicants must provide 25% match. A maximum grant period is 12 months, and the activity must occur on public property. So the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, Ohio EPA, is currently accepting proposals for the program. So if you're interested in the community litter prevention grants, community litter grants, you can apply for funds now. And just if you have questions about either of those programs, here's some contact information. For the Scrap Tire No Fault Cleanup Program, Kelly Jeter is the contact. She's the environmental supervisor. Her email is kelly.jeter@epa.ohio.gov. And for the Community and Litter Grant, you can go online to www.recycleohio.gov, or you can reach out to Marie Barnett, the grants administrator, at marie.barnett@epa.ohio.gov. Okay, so next we'll take a look at some key dates for the mosquito control grant cycle. The online mosquito control grant application opened on Monday, November 13th, so you're now able to log into the online system to create your application. If you're a new applicant, there's a simple process to create an account. If you have issues though, feel free to call or email me. I'm glad to assist with you when you create your account. Next on our list of key dates is this webinar. So we appreciate you joining us for the In Your Community webinar. This webinar will be available on the agency's YouTube channel within the next few weeks. So if you miss any details during today's presentation, you're welcome to reference the recording or contact me for information. The deadline to submit applications is Friday, January 26, 2024 at 3:00 p.m. So once that online application closes, I'm not able to reopen it. So be sure to complete the application by 3:00 on January 26th. So we anticipate having the announcements in late March. Grant recipients will then be required to participate in an online kickoff training module. So this module may be completed at the grant recipient's convenience anytime between April 17th and May 5th. This is done through the Ohio Learn system. This allows about a three-week window to complete the module. Once Ohio EPA introduced the kickoff module for the 2020 grant, it's given grant recipients some more flexibility for completing the mandatory training. Then beginning on April 17th, grant recipients will begin receiving signed grant agreements. So after the Ohio EPA director signs and executes the contract, grant recipients may begin grant activities, but not before that. Funds are expected to be dispersed in May of 2024, and all funds must be spent by April 30th, 2025. So this gives grant recipients about 1 year to complete their grant projects. So after applications are submitted, Ohio EPA will evaluate grant applications on several criteria. So first, you must submit all required forms. So we'll talk more about those requirements here in just a minute. Each section of the application has character limits, so be sure your narratives are clear and concise to ensure descriptions fall within the character limits and you're able to convey everything you like within that section. Financial need is also an important factor Ohio EPA considers when scoring applications. So you must demonstrate the financial need in the application. So if your agency doesn't receive any funds from mosquito control, be sure to state that in the financial needs section of the application. The application and request must be in alignment with the goals of the Mosquito Control Grant Program, and all required attachments must be included with your application. So this depends on what where you're requesting funds, but it may include a mosquito surveillance plan, a letter of support from your local health department for any non-health department applicants, and we'll discuss which attachments you'll be required to submit later in the application, or I'm sorry, in the presentation. So to be eligible to receive 2024 mosquito control grant funds, applicants who have been funded in the past must have submitted a final report for any mosquito control grants received except for the 2023 grant recipients. 2023 mosquito control grants may remain open until April 30th of 2024. And any unspent funds from previous mosquito control grants other than 2020 or other than 2023 must be returned to Ohio EPA. So I mentioned earlier, we'll be sending invoices for the 2022 grant recipients who didn't spend all funds, so you should be receiving those soon. And if you're unsure if you have an open grant, feel free to contact me and I'm happy to give you that information if you're unsure. So the next few slides will provide a general overview of the information you'll enter into the online application system. So the application will begin by requesting, of course, applicant information, contact information. After identifying the applicant organization, you'll need to enter the grant application contact person. This may be the primary person Ohio EPA will communicate with throughout the grant application. So if we have any questions, we can reach out to that person. So be sure this person is an individual who is able to answer those questions. You'll also identify the authorized official within your agency. So this is the person your organization has authority to sign contracts. You also need to identify a fiscal officer. If the applicant is not a local health department, a health department sponsor will need to be included in the application. And Ohio EPA will also check for previous grant compliances. So if an organization is not in compliance, a grant will not be awarded. The application will also ask you to enter the funding request amount. So you need to enter funding request for each project category in this section. So when entering your figures, please be sure your funding request matches the budget template that you will upload to accompany your application. You will also need to verify that grant funds will not be used to pay permanent employees and whether or not funds will be requested for seasonal employees or contracted services. If you're requesting funds for breeding source reductions, you also need to confirm the project meets eligibility requirements. So that would be whether or not you are using funds from the litter control grants or scrap tire grants. And any applicant requesting funds for mosquito surveillance or larval control must confirm that you have a surveillance plan, you're participating in ODH's statewide surveillance program. And if requesting funds for adult control, you must also confirm you are participating in integrated vector management. So prior to submitting, the authorized official must also sign the application. So after entering the applicant information, you'll enter the executive summary. So we've made a couple of changes to the executive summary this year. So one of those, we no longer have a section to evaluate your current mosquito control programs. We realize some applicants may not have had a program. So you're welcome if you have a program to evaluate your program in the introduction section, but you're not required to do that. But in the introduction, we do want you to provide a brief summary of your organization that includes the population, any jurisdictions you serve. Next, you're going to have your statement of need. It's similar to a problem statement, but in this section, you'll summarize the mosquito control issues your organization will address. Any collaborative partners are also important to the success of a mosquito control program. This would include key stakeholders. If any of your partners will be implementing any aspect of your mosquito control program, be sure to address their role in this section of the application. In the financial needs section, you'll provide a summary of your financial needs. So keep in mind, financial need is an important consideration when selecting proposals to be funded. So be sure to address your organization's need for funding and highlight your 2024 mosquito surveillance and control budget. So this shouldn't include any funds from past mosquito control grants you've received. It also should not include the amount of money you're requesting for the 2024 grant. So you may also provide any other financial information to show there is financial need, and you can provide examples. And new to the executive summary this year, you will also have to explain how you will track activities and purchases. So in previous years, applicants were required to describe how they plan to track activities and purchases in each budget category of the application. So now you're only required to describe how you'll track activities and purchases in the executive summary. So you can do that for all those sections, and you will not be doing that for the budget category anymore. So next, just looking at some screenshots of what you'll see in the executive summary. First, we've got the introduction. So first of all, you'll be putting the summary of your organization, providing the population served, and also any jurisdictions served. This will be the first screen of the executive summary. On screen 2, you'll summarize the mosquito control issues your organizations will address or the conditions to be improved. So that'll be the statement of need you'll be completing. The next screen is collaborative partners. So it's important to identify any collaborative partners who will be involved in the grant. So identify any partners assisting with implementation of the proposed purchases and activities. If you'll be collaborating with any jurisdictions, enter those as well. And financial need is the next one. So describe your financial need, the amount of money you currently receive for mosquito control from your organization, and just summarize your organization's current mosquito control budget and justification for financial assistance. And then, as I mentioned, the tracking activities and purchases, you'll be doing that one time. So for this one, you'll be describing how you will track those activities. So if you're going to be using whatever spreadsheet you're tracking that on or budget information, that's just to let us know that you'll be able to submit that with your final report. So after completing the executive summary, you'll complete the grant proposal section of the application. You'll be required to enter information for each budget or each project category that you're requesting funds for. So the next few slides demonstrate what you'll see when you complete the application. So in this example, I've selected 3 project categories. So when you complete the application, you'll be asked for each of those budget categories you've requested. So your responses for each category should be different. So for example, the activities described in mosquito surveillance section will address those specific activities that will take place to support your surveillance program. So this section might include setting and checking traps or mapping locations where traps are set. After you have identified your activities and purchases, you will identify the goals of each project category. So you want to make sure your goals are measurable, because the next section will be measuring and evaluating the success of your program. Next, we have the proposed timelines. So you want to explain the timeline, or the timeline should reflect the period in which the surveillance or the activities will take place. So be specific with your timeline. You may not know the exact dates, but try to avoid a timeline that runs from May 2023 to April 2024. So for example, if you know you're going to be doing surveillance early in mosquito season, that should be, that might be May of 2024 through July, for example. And then if you know specifically when spraying will be happening, but just try to avoid the entire timeline of the grant. Okay, so after you complete each project category, you'll need to upload all necessary attachments. So this is going to vary depending on which categories you're applying for. So you'll need to submit a project budget and any price quotes for proposed expenditures. So price quotes are required for all project categories except for seasonal employees. If you're applying for mosquito surveillance, larval control, or adult mosquito control, you must also include a mosquito surveillance plan. So you'll need to attach that with your application. A mosquito surveillance plan is also required if seasonal employees or contractors will be completing surveillance, larval, or adult control. So when completing your project budget, all line items for purchases must be included. So you may download a project budget template in Excel format from our website. It's also, you can link from that from the application. We've updated the template, so we know people have had difficulty with those in the past with the previous template. So you're not required to use the template, and you can upload your own budget format as long as all the required information is provided in that. So when completing the budget, be sure to round all dollar amounts to the nearest whole dollar. So we don't want to see anything in cents. So when you put that in there, just make sure that's rounded to the nearest dollar. So we have an example of a project budget for mosquito surveillance here. So the applicant requests GIS license renewal in this particular and mileage costs. So in this situation, the applicant could round mileage costs and shipping and handling the nearest dollar. And if an applicant is requesting funds for seasonal employees, include the proposed start date and end date of each employee and provide a short description of the seasonal employees with hourly rate and hours they will be working. So just a reminder, the mosquito control grant funds will not pay for permanent employees, but applicants may request funds for seasonal employees. So a mosquito surveillance plan must be uploaded to your application if you're requesting mosquito surveillance, larval control, or adult control funds. The plan can be the organization applying. You could also use the health district sponsor or contracted service provider if you don't have a mosquito surveillance plan, but this plan must be uploaded as an attachment with the application. Applicants must also attach quotes and cost estimates with their application. So you may get quotes from vendors, suppliers, or contractors. If you plan to order supplies from an online vendor, you can submit quotes from their website. So quotes and price estimates must be included for every line item in the project budget, except for seasonal employees. And if an applicant is requesting funds for seasonal employees or mileage, quotes aren't required, but you should calculate the request on the budget or the project budget form. So if an applicant is not a local health department, a letter of support from the health department is required. So if in the letter, the health department sponsors should acknowledge and support the applicant's proposed activities. The letter should also describe any commitment being provided by the local health department, and this may include participation in mosquito surveillance, control, or development of an integrated vector management plan. Okay, so how to apply? As we've mentioned several times, applications must be submitted through Ohio EPA's online application system. When completing the application, all required attachments must be uploaded. This might include the mosquito surveillance plan. A project budget and quotes for all purchases must be included, and a letter of support is required for those applicants that are not local health departments. So we have several resources available on our website. We do have an application manual. So for more information about the 2024 mosquito control grant, you can reference that. You can download the updated mosquito or the project budget template. So this is an Excel document that was created to address formatting issues with the previous template. We also have an application layout guide online. So this allows you to take a look at the information requested in an online application before you log in, and it provides a workspace before you complete an application in the online system. So you can go ahead and enter that information. You should be able to copy and paste it into the online application. And a couple of more resources here. So the Mosquito Control Program webpage, we actually do have one with a few less characters. So you can just type in epa.ohio.gov/mosquito-grants to get to our landing page for the link for the 2024 Mosquito Control Grant. You can also visit Ohio EPA's Customer Support Center. This is where you're going to be logging in to complete your application. That's at ohioepa.custhelp.com. And the Ohio Department of Health's mosquito webpage, www.odh.ohio.gov/mosquitoes. And if you have questions as you're completing the application, you can feel free to reach out to me anytime. The number is 614-728-5357, or you can email our mosquito control grant email address at mosquito.grant@epa.ohio.gov. If you have questions about surveillance, traps, and so forth, you can contact the Ohio Department of Health. Leanne Garrett is the state entomologist. Her phone is 614-466-7215. Her email, leanne.garrett@odh.ohio.gov. And with that, we're going to wrap up with another quick poll. So we'll get the question here out in just a second, and we'll allow you some time to answer. So how much money do you plan to request from the 2024 Mosquito Control Grant Program? So your options there are $5,000 or less, $5,001 to $10,000, $10,001 to $20,000, or $20,001 up to the maximum of $25,000.
Okay, I have launched the poll, so please make your selection. And it looks like most people have voted. If you have not, go ahead and please make your selection, and I'll close out the poll shortly. Okay, I am sharing the results, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Helen. Looks like we've got a pretty broad spectrum of how much people are going to request. And just want to point out, ask for the amount you need. So whatever your mosquito control grant needs are, you should request that much up to $25,000. So we don't give special consideration if you request less money. So request whatever is necessary for your program. So I believe next we're going to do a couple of questions here. So if we have any questions from the audience that have been submitted, as we mentioned earlier, I know some of those are answered privately. We may need to look into some of those if we weren't able to get an answer back to you. But I know we have a few that we're going to ask here live today.
Okay, our first question is, are applicants required to use the vendors who provided the quotes submitted in the application?
So no, you're not required to use the quotes of the vendors who submitted the application. So one reason we have you get quotes from the vendors is so you have a pretty good idea how much costs are going to be. So you're not surprised when if you are funded and you reach out to the vendor after and find out the cost is going to be more. So if you find a price that's better after you submitted that quote, we encourage you to go with that. For those common items, you can just go on to an online retailer and get quotes from them. And if you decide you want to go with another vendor later, that's no problem either. So you're not required to use the vendors who submitted quotes for the application.
Okay, how do I request a pre-review of my application?
Okay, so if you want a pre-review of the application, which I don't think I mentioned that earlier, we do allow pre-reviews. So if you're not sure, or if you want us to take a look at the application, we will do that. So we want you to make that request more than a week before the application is due. So what you will do, you'll enter your information into the online application, and there is a point prior to submitting where you're able to download a draft of your application. So you would download a copy, then you can send that to me as an email attachment with your request to have it reviewed. Let's say make this request at least 1 week prior to the deadline. But if you're interested in pre-review, feel free to call or email me anytime, and I can send you specific instructions. But essentially, you're just going to send me the document that you download before you submit the application.
Okay, if we receive a grant, can we modify our budget if we decide later that we need to change activities?
So yes, we do allow modifications of the budgets. We realize in a lot of cases, you may have staff changes or something change within your organization, and things may not go as you proposed. So we encourage grant recipients to spend all the money that was awarded. So if a project is awarded and you realize you're not going to be able to carry out some of those activities, we will allow a modification.
Okay, another question here is one of our vendors gives us a better price if we place our annual order in January. Can we purchase materials in January and then use grant money to reimburse ourselves if we're awarded the grant?
Okay, so if that one, no, you can't do that. So no purchases should be made prior to the grant contract being executed by the Ohio EPA director. So if any purchases are made prior to the contract being signed, the grant recipient would be responsible for paying for those items. So we wouldn't allow for a reimbursement of any purchases that took place prior to the grant contract being signed.
Okay, and we'll wrap up with this last question. Will we receive confirmation that Ohio EPA has received our application?
So after the application is submitted, an automated email will be sent to the email address that's associated with the account that submitted the application. So if your contact information is up to date in your online account, you should see that probably within a second or two of hitting submit. So you'll receive that confirmation email. So if you don't get that, call or email me and make sure the application was successfully submitted. If there was an issue, I mean, it could have been something like maybe you had a new email address at work, but definitely call if you don't get that email address, and I can check to see that it was submitted or not. But short answer, yes, you should receive that confirmation in an automated email after you submit your application.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for your great presentation. If we didn't answer your question live, Jeff will be following up after the webinar with via email to answer those questions. So again, thank you for your great presentation, Jeff. Thank you everybody for attending today's webinar. Once you leave, you will receive a survey. It will pop up on your screen. We value your feedback and we would greatly appreciate it if you let us know how we're doing and let us know if there's anything we can do to further assist you. You'll also receive a follow-up email after the webinar with the link to your certificate of attendance and another link to the survey. So before we end for the day, please check out our upcoming session on December 5th, remediation and reuse of brownfields in your community. And also to register for upcoming webinars, you can check out our agency calendar. It's on our main web page. You can also go to the link on the slide. The events calendar is also at the footer of each of our web pages. To receive notifications of upcoming webinars, go to our Ohio EPA Resource Hub. You can create an account, then go to the option Subscribe to Updates. Then select the subscription option, All Trainings, Webinars, and Conferences. You can go to the link on the slide, or the EPA Resource Hub is also on the bottom footer on every web page. If you miss past webinars, you can go to DEFA's webpage at the link on the slide. Once the DEFA webpage, once you're on there, there's a menu on your left. Click on the word training, and here you'll find recordings of trainings you may have missed. You can also go to our agency YouTube channel to view recorded webinars. As Jeff mentioned, we'll post a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel